Hello, folks. Dustin Zarni here, Democratic Elections Commissioner for Onondaga County. Welcome to Commissioner in the Car. Today is Sunday, December 28th, 2025, the last Sunday of 2025. And as always, before we do anything, go Bills. Big game today. Every game is a big game for them. They're playing the Eagles, so this could be a Super Bowl preview, maybe. Who knows? They got to win because the AFC East is in the balance. We're waiting to see how New England does against the Jets. One of the few times I'm going to be rooting for the Jets, to be quite honest. But I'm rooting for the Jets today, so who knows? Maybe by the time you watch this, we'll have some updates that will be fun, or status quo. Still next week, too. We still got next week as well, so to get that AFC East, which comes with a home game playoff. So, but enough about the Bills. Let's get back to why you're here. My weekly update on my vlog, podcast, whatever it is. This is what this is my standard podcast, the only podcast I'm doing right now. It is a look on what's going on at the Board of Elections, what happened last week, what's happening next week, and then a special topic that I want to cover each week. And this week, I'm going to talk about the races coming up in 2026. We're rounding out the year here. If 2025, everything is done and said. Last week, I did a reflection on 2025, but this week, I'm going to be talking about what's coming ahead in 2026. But as always, we're going to look back at what work is being done at the Board of Elections this last week. It is Christmas week, the holiday season, and we had a lot of people taking a lot of time off. Boards of elections are weird. A lot of our staff accrue vacation for this end of the year period because we have what's called blackout periods where we don't allow staff to take long vacations because we're in the middle of the election. Usually those blackout periods run from Memorial Day to July 4th and from Labor Day until Thanksgiving, and sometimes a little after Thanksgiving. So in the month of December, people earn vacations. They have a right to go on vacation. I want them to go on vacation. And so a lot of people are taking a lot of time off to be with family, including myself. I'm technically out of the office until January 12th, although I've been in and out of the office during this period. I was in New York City for a work trip. I just got done with a Boston trip that was mostly pleasure, but there was a little work involved there too, meeting with our vendor Clear Ballot that was out there, and then of course I have my New York State Elections Commissioner Association meeting January 5th through the 8th in Albany, so that's why I'm out of the office a lot, along with vacations, well-deserved vacations, and a lot of my staff. So we're still in the middle of just getting caught up on registrations. We're when October 25th hit, or whatever the 10-day period was, I believe it was the 25th, we didn't do any registrations. We couldn't do any registrations until we certified the election. And then after we certified the election, the first thing we did was go through the 8,000 or so mail checks that, and return mail that had come since June, which we weren't by law legally allowed to inactivate those voters, and did a lot of that. In fact, we've lost about 6,000 voters since the election. We had about 313,000. We're now down to 307,000. And this is good. This is standard maintenance of our voter registration rolls. And it's one of the great things that we've been able to do this last year was catch up on these things, because in previous years, we continue to work, not quite get caught up, and then do another mail check in April, May, because we just didn't have staff. Now we're well ahead of that April, May time period. And I think we have one of the best voter rolls that we've had in Onondaga County in probably 8 to 10 years. Because, these changes that have happened in New York have required us to do so much more work on voter registration, which is good for the voters. But we, as you know, we have had a very low staffing priority at the Onondaga County Board of Elections by the Onondaga County Legislature. But last year, and I'm going to give the Republicans on the county legislature credit, but last year they added 4 staffers in the middle of our troubles that we had in 2024, mainly due to short staffing and inability to find temporary workers. They gave us 4 permanent workers. And we have also, that they gave us that in 2024. And in the 2025 budget, again, the Republican majority in the legislature, gave us, and I think the county executive, it was in his budget as well, gave us chief registration clerks, which didn't add people, but it reclassified and allowed us that on January 1st, we're going to have this chief registration clerk. Although we've had a couple people working in that title for the last month or two. So this is really helped us catch up on our registrations, and I'm really proud of the work that the staff has done. So they've already cleaned up the mail check cards and return mail, and now they're on the backlog of the voter registration. And of course, we're going to continue to work on that and try to be as up to date as possible when we do our next mail check cards early in March, I have to look at the political calendar. It's several months away. So that's what's been going on at the Board of Elections. So let's go to our special topic this week. And this is looking ahead to 2026. So we have been working on our offices to be filled list and our public officer list. Now that we've had the election, we're going through proving the public officer list. That's really kind of a lower priority. We know who they are, and we're working on that, just proofing it to make sure it's ready. But what we have done is started working on our offices to be filled list. And this is actually something we're doing kind of early because technically those offices are not filled until February 1st. That list isn't produced till February 1st. That's because the town and city clerks have until then to give us a list of the people that are on the ballot, or a list of the positions that are on the ballot. And the state board also has a certification date at that point, and then we release our list. But we're releasing a tentative list early, hopefully in the next week or so. We're working with the clerks now, and one of the reasons is because of the even year bill that has moved a lot of our town and county offices to the even year. We are trying to lead in a way at the Board of Elections that will give the public the most knowledge possible. Normal races that would be up in a gubernatorial year, 2026 is a midterm, or in New York, a gubernatorial year. It's when our governor is running as opposed to president. In a gubernatorial year, we have our statewide offices that are running. Oh, before I get into that, a little note on primaries. I'm not going to touch on primaries right now because my focus is the general election. We know these offices are going to have a general election. We don't know whether there will be primaries. And because we don't know that, I'm not going to touch on it that much. There are people out there announcing that they're thinking about primarying in one spot or another. There's several people seeking party designations. But a lot of times when a party designation happens one way, the primary doesn't happen. Also, people who say they're going to primary, well, when it gets into March and they have to get petitions done, they don't always do so. So when you hear about things like, oh, there may be a governor's primary, there may be a state comptroller's primary, there may be, there was an article in the paper about Mo Brown thinking about primarying Bill Magnarelli in AD 128. These things are out there, but they're not definite until the filing periods in April. So through March, I think it's through April 2nd. It's like the end of March through April 2nd is the filing periods. We'll go into that when we get into petitions in February and March. But And that's why I call it April Fool's Day. Well, April Fool's Day is called April Fool's Day, but I joke around that April Fool's Day is also significant in the political calendar, because that's when you really kind of start finding out whether people are running for office or not, because they have to submit their petitions. So, that being said, there are going to be 4 statewide offices up for election. Governor Kathy Hochul has announced that she's running for re-election. And I am going to mention incumbents here because I think incumbency is important. And the lieutenant governor actually is an interesting position, because the lieutenant governor, Anthony Delgado, he's the current, he has announced that he's running a primary against Kathy Hochul, and so he's not going to be on the lieutenant governor. That's going to be an interesting choice. Normally, that is a position that could be primaried, and thus the governor is saddled with somebody who might have won a primary instead of the person they chose. We'll see if that happens. I haven't heard anything about that. Probably, if a governor's candidate is challenging in a primary, they will have their second in command that they want to be their lieutenant governor if they win the primary, challenge in the lieutenant governor. Governor Hochul has not announced who her running mate is. That'll happen at the state convention sometime in February or March. Thus, don't worry about that. So then, of course, there's State Comptroller DiNapoli is running again, and Attorney General Letitia James. Those are the 4 statewide offices. You may notice that there's no senator running in 2026. That's because Schumer, or Gillibrand ran in 24, Schumer ran in 22. As you know, the New York Senate has a 6-year term, and you only have 2 senators from the state, so you always have one cycle where the Senate doesn't have a candidate. That's this cycle. We also have, of course, New York congressional candidate John Mannion is running. He's New York 22. He covers all of Onondaga County and parts of Oneida, Cayuga, Cortland, Madison. So he's got a few counties in there. But Onondaga County is the plurality of the district and where he's from, and he won in 2024. He's already announced he's running again. And I believe Greg LaMondes, who we'll get to in a second, has announced he's running against him. We also have both of our Senate, or the New York State Senate is up in 2026. Both the Senate and the Assembly are up. They're all on 2-year terms, so every seat is up. In Onondaga County, we have the 48th, which is Rachel May, and the 50th, which is Chris Ryan. Again, both Democrats, both have announced that they're running again. For the Assembly, we have 4 Assembly races. The Assemblies 128 and 129 are wholly inside Onondaga County. That's Bill Magnarelli and Pam Hunter, respectively. They have all announced they're running again for re-election. Again, possible primaries aside, I'm not even going to talk about that for right now. AD 127 is Al Sturpey. He is mostly Onondaga County, though he does have part of, I believe, Cazenovia in Madison County, and he has announced he's running again. Now, AD 126 was Greg LaMondes, the sole Republican in the state delegation, and he has announced he's running for Congress. So that becomes an open seat, and it's a seat that Democrats have tried to take in the past, but have not been able to do so, despite some really good challengers. So many people have thought that that's not a seat that can be won. However, with 2026 looking at this point like it might be a really good Democratic year, we might see that might be a very potential interesting race, especially since it's an open seat. Open seat meaning that the incumbent is not running for it yet. You also have all 17 county legislators are up again. You may have heard, the Democrats just won the Onondaga County legislature for the first time in 50 years, but because of the even year bill, now this is where the even year bill is going to start to come into play. All 17 are basically on a 1-year term, and now running for a 4-year term because of the term limit / 4-year terms that was passed by you, the voters, last year. So everybody running this year runs for a 4-year term. So this is going to be a very big fight. Which party gets to lock in the majority for the next 4 years? Democrats obviously feel very good about where they were. They have a 10-7 majority, one of the largest majorities percentage-wise that they've had in 50 years. I believe it's even larger than that 2-year majority percentage-wise that they had back then. I think that was only a 1-seat majority. So that's it's the largest majority they've ever had, and they actually believe, and I agree, that they have really good potential opportunities for pickups. They did not run candidates in 2, 11, 12, and 14. And they, win last year. And those are all seats that are potential pickups in a blue wave Democratic year, or even maybe not in a blue wave Democratic year. So we could see that happen. Of course, we don't know what next year is going to be. So and 12 is actually going to be an open seat. Dave Knapp, who is a longtime representative, that former leader of the legislature, has decided to run for the AB 126 that is being opened by Greg LaMondes running for Congress. So you see this domino effect happening. And in a potential pickup seat for the Democrats, an open seat, that's huge news. Also, Rich McCarron in the 11th has said he's running against Rachel May. Again, another potential open seat in a seat that is being targeted by Democrats. So keep an eye on those two. Also, Democratic Charles Garland has announced that he is not running for re-election, which means a potential open seat in the 15th. That's seen as a pretty safe Democratic lock seat. It's the inner city of Syracuse. That means we'll probably have a primary there. And of course, people are waiting to see what's happening with Mo Brown, whether he's going to run again for the 16th or run for Assembly District 128. So there's some interesting things happening there. We also have one countywide judge up. That's County Court Judge Matt Doran. His seat is up. And in 2022, the last time County Court was up, there was 2 positions up. Democrats were able to win one with Ted Limpert, and Judge McDonigal was able to. A Republican was able to eke out a win over the second Democratic candidate. Now, 2022 was kind of seen as a rough year for Democrats, yet we were able to win countywide. And as you saw in my weekly wonk this last week, we've actually had 23 of 26 races that have spanned the entire county have gone to the Democratic side. So that's an interesting another interesting race to look at, to see who's going to run for that and whether Democrats can continue their streak or whether Judge Doran can win re-election. I think that's going to be a very highly fought seat. Now we get into the towns. So this gets a little complicated because not every town is having races and not every town race is happening. Basically, any town that had a race this last year that was being elected on a 2-year term is up again this year. The ones that were elected on 4-year terms, they actually will shrink down to a 3-year term and run again in 2028. So this is part of that even year law that is going to start peppering all these local races into the even years to start aligning them with even years over the next until 2030. I'm not going to get into the big, I've already done several episodes on that, so I'm not going to get into the big overall on this, but each year I will remind you each even year I'll remind you that some of these local, and actually the local years, we will have local elections in 2027. It's actually, it's not till 2029 where the local elections will have aligned with the even years, and we'll have very few elections in 2029. In 2027, we're still going to have a lot of elections, but that's in the future. Let's talk about 2026. So I'll go through each town with their seats that are slated as of this point to go up. Now, people could resign, people could die. This has already happened several times, even since the election. So we're going to have to see where this goes. Again, they have till February 1st to align it, and then really we have until 7 days before the end of petitioning, which is late March, for unexpected vacancies to occur that might put them on the ballot. And then, through the petition process. And then you actually have until 90 days before the election, where if somebody then leaves early for whatever reason, that it could go on the ballot for this November election. So all of this is in flux, is what I'm trying to say. But I will try to know which towns are going to have some really interesting races that could affect town control, partisan control of that town. And we start off with one of the big ones, Camillus. Camillus now has a 4-3 board. And all of their offices, supervisor and town councilors or ward councilors, because they run inside districts inside their town, they're not town-wide. All 7 members are up for election this year. Democrats won all 3 of the elections that they contested last year, along with the highway superintendent, who is also up again this year. So all of Camillus is going to be a town we're going to watch, a purple town that is pretty much even registration. And if Democrats are having a really good year, there's a really good chance that Democrats can take control of this town by winning a 4th town councilor seat, whether that's the supervisor or in one of those 3 other wards that they left uncontested last year. Cicero has supervisor, clerk, justice, and highway superintendent up. All of their townwide offices or their non-town board members run on 2-year terms. You may remember that Democrats eked out a victory last year. And Rob Santucci is running for re-election for another 2 years. All of these people are running for 2-year terms, so they'd be up again in 28, so on and so forth. Clay actually has a big election, 2 big elections, but supervisor and clerk. But that supervisor is very interesting. So Damian Ulatowski, the long-term supervisor of Clay being the biggest town in Onondaga County and the future home of Micron, has announced that he's not running for re-election. Democrats, if they win control of the supervisor race, they can win control of the town board and also control of a town that is very important to Onondaga County's future, because they won all 3 of the town board races that they put up candidates for last year. And then the 7-person board, is 1 away from a Democrat taking it. So watch Clay now, Camillus now. All right. DeWitt, the supervisor's up. Max Ruckteschell won this last year, but he's on a 2-year term, so he's up again this year. Pretty Democratic town. A Republican hasn't been able to win townwide in DeWitt in years. So it's going to be hard for anybody to do that. Elbridge has a town justice up. Fabius has their supervisor, clerk, and highway superintendent up. Again, both of those seem to be Republican towns. It's going to be hard for Democrats to win there. Lafayette, supervisor, tax collector up. Manlius, the supervisor, is up. John Deere is running for re-election. There's already an announced primary there. Again, we'll see if it actually becomes a primary. There was a lot of talk last year that the Republicans would be able to win that supervisor seat. They put up a very well-funded, well-known candidate, Danny Leica. John Deere won by about 5-6 percentage points. So it's and that's a higher percentage point than he had won his previous 2 terms. So it's gonna, in what is seen as a Democratic year or even an even year, it's going to be really hard for a Republican to win out there. But we'll see what happens. Marcellus, another town that their control of their board is on the line. The supervisor, which went Democratic last year, it's a 2-year term. And then in a very unfortunate and odd situation, one of their counselors who was elected this last year died after the election And before he could take his oath of office, it wouldn't have mattered if he could take his oath of office when somebody, but he died before his next term starts. So that becomes a to-fill vacancy next year. And because that board now becomes 2-2, Democrat versus Republican, it's quite possible that whoever wins that to-fill vacancy will bring Marcellus, under partisan control of that party. It will not be under partisan control, at least to start the year. We'll see if the town board can come up with a candidate that both parties agree on to put in there for the year. But they don't have to. We saw this out in Lysander last year where there was 2-2 party control, and they did not end up filling the seat. So that could happen again. Onondaga, the supervisor, is up. It is rumored that the current supervisor, who had a scary reelection, within about 5 percentage points, Khalid Bey did a very good job running out there in Onondaga. It's rumored that he's running for the OCL 11 seat. So if that's the case, it might be an open seat. Again, might be a potential pickup for the Democrats because they came so close last time. Tisco, the supervisor, is up. Again, a very red town, very tough there. Pompey, another situation where, so the supervisor is up, and that's Diana Carpenter. She was a Democrat and is a Democrat and won last year. She is on the town board, and so she has to give up the town board seat to take the supervisor seat. That means that next year, even though it's a 4-year town board seat normally, next year that town board seat will go up again. She won this last time. A Democrat also won with her on the town board. That will leave this 5-person board, a 2-2 board with a vacancy, and that vacancy for the town, along with the supervisor this year, will determine the partisan control of the board. So that'll be an interesting one. Salina, all 4 ward councilors, the other town that has ward councilors, and the supervisor this last year all went Democrat. They're all 2-year terms. They're all up next year. So we will see whether the Republicans can rally. They've held Salina for years, since the mid-90s, and they got swept. It was part of the Salina sweep that not only brought in full town board control for the Democrats, but also the 2 county legislators that were out there, Ellen Block and Jeremiah Thompson. So we'll see if that was a fluke or something that can be replicated. Skinny Atlas, the supervisor, is up. Chris Legg is a Democratic supervisor out in Skinny Atlas. He won in 23. He won again in 25, and now is up in 26 because it's a 2-year term. Spafford, another town that Democrats did really well. They actually wrestled partisan control of the board last year by winning a Democrat winning and also winning the Democratic supervisor race. And because one other Democrat was already on the board, it became a 3-2 board, and Democrats control that board. The supervisor position is up again, along with the highway superintendent and the tax collector. They were all on 2-year terms. So it's 1 year. So that supervisor becomes pivotal if the Republicans want to take control of Spafford. That race is going to be important. And then Van Buren, the supervisor, is up. Again, Democrats haven't done too well out in Van Buren, although the numbers say they could this year. But that race is up. It's fun note on that supervisor race. That was the one instance of somebody forgetting to take their oath of office a couple years ago, and being thrown off the board, and the board didn't put him back on. So there is some weirdness out there in Van Buren, but the Democrats haven't been able to mount a challenge there. So that's it for what's up. We do have villages up next year, and that's what my next week's Commissioner in the Car is going to be about, is village elections, because some villages will align in March, some in June, some in November, and I want to do a whole podcast on that. So I plan on doing villages for next Sunday, the 2nd. And that'll be my second part of my look ahead to 2026. And then this last week, I did a weekly walk back on the weekly thing, 3 weeks in a row. How about that? But it was a little late. It was on Friday because of the holiday. On Christmas Eve, I'm trying to release these on Wednesdays, but I didn't look ahead as much as I should have to see that both Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve is on a Wednesday. So, and then Christmas was on Thursday. So I didn't take time away from my family to write it. I did on Friday. And so I released it. It was our third look back at the 2025 election, and it focused on who won and where Democrats did well. But the big thing out of that was almost 50% of the races. I think about 47% of the races, Democrats didn't even put up a candidate. And that is a big lesson for Democrats, I believe, that they should be running more candidates, because in a year like last year, we could have won some of these. Not all of them. Obviously, some of them are very red towns, but some of them were in blue towns that Democrats didn't put up candidates. So a big, opportunity for the Democrats if they can recruit candidates. And they don't have a lot of races this year to do that with. So hopefully we will see, a fuller slate this time. And then next week I will be looking at Onondaga County overall. It will not release on New Year's Eve. It will release on New Year's Day, Thursday. And it will be looking at the registration rate for Onondaga County. It'll be my first of my 2026 registration weekly wonks, which are all about all the political subdivisions that are going this year. And as you know, Onondaga County is going to be very big for John Mannion and the New York 22 congressional race, but also that county court race that is up. And if any state Supreme Court races come up, that's still kind of in the air because of a possible Supreme Court realignment. And so I'm not going to go much into that unless it happens, and then I will. So that's all I got for this week. One of the things that I'm going to launch in next week's weekly wonk is really focusing on the ages of political subdivisions. Like who is, what is the age of Onondaga County? What are the age ranges? And also what are they aligned in, what party, so on and so forth. So this allows me to get the average age of Onondaga County. I'll be releasing that in my weekly wonk next week. So if you want, in the comments, do a little guess. What do you think the average age of the average voter of Onondaga County is? Put a guess in the comments. Person who wins or gets close, I might give a shout out, or you just get the validation of doing it. And next week's podcast, in the weekly wonk, I'll do it, but I'll also try to answer that trivia question in next week's podcast. If this goes well, maybe this will be a feature of the podcast going forward. So that's it. And again, next week's Commissioner in a Car on Sunday will be on village elections for 2026. Which village is having elections, how you can run for office if it's in March or June, and in November. All right. Thank you very much. And remember to follow along at DustinZarni.com. You can like and subscribe there. You can get an email notification every time I have content up going into the new year. And also you can follow this on any of my social medias. I'm on all of them. And remember, last but not least, go Bills! Bye-bye.